So good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. I'm Elisabetta Lazzaro, professor of Cultural Creative Industries Management at the Business School for the Creative Industries, University for the Creative Arts in the UK, CEOS coordinator. I'm very pleased and honored to announce the last Cultural Economics seminar of the Association for Cultural Economics of the year. So I'm very pleased and honored to introduce the presenter of today, Jianping Mei. He was awarded together with his co-authors the Cultural Economics, the Association for Cultural Economics International, the Journal of Cultural Economics Pommerehne Prize for their paper published last year on the Journal of Cultural Economics. For the paper titled Empirical Evidence of Anchoring and Loss Aversion from Art Auctions. So we don't need to introduce Jianping Mei, but let me still say that he's an associate professor of finance at the Stern Business School at New York University. His areas of research include international finance, asset pricing, and real estate finance. He published widely in various important economics journal, and we cultural economists, we know him in particular for his famous art index he produced together with Michael Moses, the Fine Art Price Index. So today he will present the paper he wrote together with Catherine Grady, Lara Loewenstein, Mike Moses, and Rachel Ponal. So, Jianping, the floor is yours. You can start.
Okay, thank you, Elisabetta. I think this is really quite wonderful for me to have the opportunity to present this research to the CEOs. And I think this will give me an opportunity to share some of our work. So let me very briefly provide a literature review. I think sort of, since the 1974 influential paper by Tversky and Kahneman, I think people start to recognize that actually, the simple version of the rational expectation model may not tell the whole story, because I think in setting prices, people may not just set it in expectation of the future prices, but they also actually brings in some baggage that are actually taken from their previous transactions. And the first thing that is widely now recognized is actually there might be a so-called anchoring effect, which is that actually how much you paid for actually affect the prices you set today, in addition to whatever rational expectation models that actually would indicate. And this actually has been tested by Katie and Beggs in their 2009 AER paper. But I think one drawback of that paper is that actually that paper only rely on a very small set of data, which only had about 94 observations. So I think this is sort of the first motivation of this paper. This paper of 5 of us who are working on who we just got published, and then there is another issue raised also by the 2 very influential economists in '79, which indicate that actually people may actually have a loss aversion, and there is a large literature actually on loss aversion from other areas of economics. For example, my classmate, David Janisov and Mayer, in 2001, they published a paper on loss aversion using real estate data. And then, of course, there is a large literature in finance, looking at loss aversion in the stock market. And then Eichholz and Lindathal also sort of tested this loss aversion issue using the real estate market data. So the question here is that, in our market, can we do sort of something similar? And also, can we actually use, a larger data set so that we can not only look at anchoring, but also look at loss aversion, and also maybe look at other dimensions as well. For example, how does holding period affect anchoring and also affecting loss aversion? So the contribution of this paper is basically the combination of Mike's and our data versus Rachel's data. So we basically combined two data sets together, which actually had roughly about over 100 years of market data, which and also it's in the repeated sales framework, so that actually we can not only look at not only look at the issue of anchoring and loss aversion, but also look at whether it's possible to actually take advantage of it. So, and as that actually requires so-called triplets, in other words, not just two transactions, but actually maybe 3 or 4 transactions, so that actually you can look at how anchoring or loss aversion coming from the first and second sale actually would impact the holding period from the second to the third sale. So this is essentially what we call the triplets, and this triplets data basically allows us to look at the impact on future returns that actually as a result of anchoring and also loss aversion, because this actually would make it interesting. For example, if there are large anchoring and their loss aversion effects, this certainly make I think the question becomes, is it possible to take advantage of these biases, because these biases in some sense are means some kind of irrational behavior that actually which would make the pricing not right in the rational expectation sense, and that probably would make it interesting or worthwhile to actually to select paintings in future for future higher returns. In other words, to find bargains or good buys, or try to avoid those that may be too expensive, or the price too high, so to speak. So this is basically, I think, the contribution of this paper, which is a much larger data set, and also the data set actually includes the triplets that would also allow us to see, more interesting, ask more interesting questions. So let me just give you.
You may you may want to scroll down your slides, because we are still on your first slide.
Oh, actually, I'm actually sort of going. So I'm actually moving down my slides, and you don't see the change?
Not really.
Oh, that's strange. Well, I'm really quite terribly sorry. I don't know sort of what's going on.
Okay, now now it works.
Oh, now it works. Oh, all right. But this is actually, it's probably a smaller screen, right?
No, it's fine. We can see it.
Oh, okay, okay. I think if you can see it, then I think you know. So let me very quickly give you our empirical model. So as you know fairly well, that actually any test of anchoring effects and also loss aversion is basically a joint test of our pricing model, as well as you know as well as sort of you know the sort of the specific functional form that actually we are writing down. So so as you can see on the left hand side, this is the log price. We actually use two pieces of data to actually use the model to describe. I'm sorry, we actually use the model to describe two variables. The first is the actual sale price. The second is actually the low price estimates, which we believe that's something that actually is closely related to the reserve price. So the left hand side is basically log price, or the lower estimates. And then the right hand side, essentially what we right now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 terms. The first is the constant term. And a second term is basically the hedonic model for estimating the expected price. And then the second term, the A2, is the variable of is the parameter of interest, with actually trying to capture the anchoring effect. So P I T minus 1, this is basically the previous purchase price by the seller. And the pi IT, as I mentioned, that this is the expected price. Actually, the seller is expecting to get at a sale. So this is essentially capturing the anchoring effect. And the third term, A3 is essentially what we use to adjust for a unobservable term. And the idea is that if you take the difference between PIT minus 1 versus the expected price at T minus 1, this would essentially give you essentially this unobservable term, which we want to capture. And then the last item is the item of interest for trying to capture loss aversion. So this could be actually, you know, we can use a very simple linear approximation, or we can use a sort of a nonlinear estimate. So we actually tried both. So this is the model, empirical model we use. So let me say it again. A1 and I'm sorry, A2 and A4 are the parameters of real interest. So let me just give you very quickly table 3, which we look at the sale price and also the low estimate. So this is basically the two variables we try to capture with the empirical model I just mentioned. So if you look at the anchoring effect, the anchoring effect in the linear model is not significant, but in the nonlinear model, it is actually highly significant. And then if you look at the loss aversion, as you can see, they are significant both for the linear and the nonlinear model. So this is if we use the sale price as the left-hand side variable. And both of them are positive. So the anchoring effect essentially says that if someone actually paid for a painting at above estimate in the last purchase, then the sale price, you know, this time is also going to be slightly higher. So there is this anchoring effect, and of course there is also this loss aversion effect. This effect is actually pretty big, as you can see. It's 0.533. And also if you look at for the low estimates, which is the panel on the right hand side, you can also see that the anchoring effect is not significant for the linear specification, but highly significant for the nonlinear specification. And in both cases, the loss aversion effect is highly significant for both the linear and the nonlinear specification. I think what's nice about this data is that actually, as you can see, we have over 6,000 observations for the actually 6,400. I'm sorry, 6,400 observations for the sale price and close to 50, actually a little bit over 5,800 pairs of observations for the low estimates. So in this case, we can actually split sample. We can look at different holding periods. So if you look at table 4, you can see that actually we split sample into those holding periods less than 5 years and those holding periods longer than 5 years. So if you look at the linear model for anchoring effects, you can see that actually for the linear specification, the effect is stronger and more significant for the shorter holding period and negligible for the long for those paintings that are held for more than 5 years. For the nonlinear model, you can also see the same effect, which is that actually the shorter period actually the parameter is bigger than the longer period, longer holding period. So anchoring seems to be more significant, for the most recent purchase than actually for longer time than something that actually purchased a long time ago. So this actually makes sense. And I think the results is pretty. The results are pretty similar if you use the low estimate, which are provided on the right-hand side of the panel. For the anchoring effect, for the linear specification, you can see on the left-hand side, the loss aversion, the effect is smaller for the shorter holding period and bigger for the long-term holding period. This is for the linear specification. For the nonlinear specification, I think the shorter holding period, the parameter is a little bit bigger, slightly bigger, is 0.485. And the other one for the more than 5 year is actually 0.39. But we've looked at them. I think they are sort of reasonably close, and you can now tell them significantly apart. So they're more or less the same. And then if you look at the right-hand side of the panel, look at the low estimate, the results for the low estimate. I think what you can see is that for the anchoring effect, I think the linear ones they're both not significant. For the nonlinear specification, I think we have the same results as sale price. You can see that the parameter for the coefficient for holding period less than 5 years is 0.131, and the other one is 0.065. So the anchoring effect is stronger for short holding period than longer holding period. For the loss aversion. I think for the low estimates, you can see, I think the results in this case for the linear and also the nonlinear specification, we can see that the effect is the effect, as you can see, is stronger for the loss aversion, is stronger for the linear ones. I'm sorry, for the longer period. So the results is pretty much the opposite of the anchoring effects. So it's stronger for the longer holding period than the shorter holding periods. So I think that's these are the results. And lastly, I think we're trying to use the triplets to see if these so-called behavioral biases, whether that can help us to identify future winners. And here, so if we regress the returns, the excess returns between between the second sale and the third sale. So you can see this, in other words, for the second collector, you can see that actually the anchoring effect you see is negative. You have a negative coefficient of 0.017. So this essentially indicates that actually you want to avoid in other words, for those paintings that are actually being bought at a high price in the first sale. So this is going to lead to this seller to actually ask for a higher price. So this anchoring effect will essentially have a negative impact on the future excess returns. So you want to actually avoid those paintings that actually the last buyer, the seller actually when he bought it, he actually paid a too high a price. And you probably like to favor those that actually he had when the seller actually had a bargain when he was buying it. So this is probably going to give you a slightly better chance of having a higher return for you. But the loss aversion effect is, as you can see, we cannot really see anything because the effect is basically zero. So there is no evidence. There is no evidence there. So let me sort of very quickly wrap it up. So I like to sort of leave time for questions. So I think we basically find that anchoring I think uses much larger data set, which is over 6,400 pairs of data, transaction data from as far back as almost 100 years ago. I think we find anchoring is much more important for items that are resold quickly. And also, we find the effect of loss aversion. This actually increases with time that a painting is held. In other words, if a guy actually held a painting for 10 years rather than 5 years, then the loss aversion, the guy actually who was expecting to have a loss, after having held it for 10 years, it's much more sensitive to what kind of price he is going to get. I think this is essentially what we found. But on the other hand, despite the fact this loss aversion effect is relatively strong, maybe because of our data limitations, we still cannot say definitively. In other words, we have no evidence that this can actually help us identify future winners. So the loss aversion effect is not really that helpful. But on the other hand, I think the anchoring, the presence of the anchoring effect probably allows us or direct us to try to avoid those paintings that was overpaid by the previous collector. And also maybe we should slightly favor those paintings that the previous collector had a bargain. So I think that's basically I think our empirical evidence. So let me just sort of quickly stop here and like to take some questions.
All right, thank you very much. And indeed, there is already a question from Antonello Scorcu. So Antonello asks, could you please specify in some detail how the loss aversion term is defined in the regressor specification? I possibly missed, says Antonello, this point in your presentation. So perhaps if you can go back.
I think I deliberately actually was a little bit vague on sort of how it was how it was done. I think this was actually the model was specified in Katie's AER paper in 2009. Essentially, the term is as you know, because loss aversion basically is loss aversion is basically sort of like you know, the effect is present if the expected loss is positive and then zero otherwise. So this, you have this nonlinear break. So I think in their paper they specify the functional form, which I think that at the moment I don't remember the details, because the empirical part was actually executed by Lara. So I think Antonio, I think I'd like to direct you to actually the AER paper by Katie that actually would you know, detail its functional form, which I think I don't recall at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions or comments? Please feel free to. Antonello is typing something. Antonello, please feel free to speak.
No, that's fine. Thanks for your answer, Professor Mei. Thanks.
All right. So, are there other questions or comments? Well, I do have a comment. While it would make sense, the result about the anchoring effect. So what is your interpretation about the result you got about the loss aversion? And could you also explain why you had more significant results with the non-linear models as compared to the linear model?
That's let me see, how do I sort of what is the intuition? I think so. Let me just go back to the I think this is actually a really good question. I don't I think it has something to do with the functional form, because loss aversion, as I mentioned earlier, this is essentially sort of like you know, it's sort of a nonlinear function. So it's basically, you know, it's basically nothing. You know, if the expected loss is in other words, you know, if you have profits, you know, no matter how big the profits are, they basically, you know, it's just zero. It's just zero. and then you know, it start to sort of like, you know, at a 45 degree is sort of, you know, the losses sort of start to you know, as the expected loss sort of increases, this you know, this term kicks in, and there, if you sort of like, you know, put it in a linear form, I don't know. I think this is actually, you know, it's actually pretty. I think it has something to do with the error structure. You know, well, let me think about it. I think I will. If I come up with something, I'll drop you a note, Elizabeth.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions or comments from the audience? I know that we have many art market specialists today at this Cultural Economics online seminar. So please feel free to intervene. All right. So I have another question for you, Jianping. Before we started, we were chatting a little bit, and you were also mentioning about you are launching an art price index for the Chinese art market. So since this paper you presented today is about consumer behavior, about art collectors' behavior, do you think that dealing with the Chinese art market involves a different hypothesis setting about Chinese collectors? I'm talking in particular about the mainland China.
Oh, I think this is a really interesting and also a tough question. So let me just give my friends in the audience sort of some background about sort of how Mike and I we get into this Chinese art market study, because after the publication of the Mei and Moses indices, I think I just really got really you know, a earful of criticism from my Chinese friends. They are saying that actually I'm, you know, biased towards you know, Western art and just, you know, neglecting you know, art by Chinese artists. But I think at the time, actually, when Mike and I we were launching the so-called Western art indices, you know, 20 years ago, there were very few Chinese or very few Chinese, very few auctions about Chinese art. So they were not actually mainstream. But what's interesting is that actually, you know, over the last 20 years, you know, Sotheby's, Christie's, and the Phillips, you know, start to have more auctions. So this spring, when I was in Shanghai, I was again criticized by my friends who were actually avid collectors of Chinese art, and they mentioned to me that actually now there are actually quite a lot of transactions. As a matter of fact, they said that actually it accounts for roughly about 20% of the world auction market. So as a result, sort of they basically that basically led me to actually, you know, spend some time going through you know, transactions by the three major auction houses, and indeed that actually we found enough repeated sales pairs to actually allow us to construct the Chinese art market or indices for Chinese art. Let me just mention that actually Chinese art is actually broadly defined, and it's not just art produced by artists, living in China, but they are also having, but they also include artists, Chinese artists living overseas, like Zhao Wuji, or Zhao Wuqi. I think that's probably the pronunciation. So what's interesting is actually we actually have found that actually the Chinese art actually outperformed the Impressionists, and also outperformed even the contemporary segments of the Western art market over the last 20 years. But what's interesting is that actually since COVID, the market for Chinese art actually has dropped quite substantially. I think that's sort of like probably the result of several factors, or a confluence of several factors. One is actually the Chinese economy is entering into a period of adjustment. That the economy is relatively weak, and then secondly is actually many collectors, Chinese collectors, are actually also real estate developers, and they are Chinese real estates are not doing well recently because of the Chinese government is trying to sort of control the real estate bubble. So they are in the process of deleveraging. So I think you have a lot of collectors are basically leaving this market. And of course, I think another important factor is actually the collectors for Chinese art are not just Chinese. Actually, there are many international collectors who are actually hurt by the rising interest rates in the U.S. So I think these probably are three main factors. But I think, Elizabeth, you actually have a very good question. You said, what's the difference between collectors of Chinese art versus Western art? One thing I can tell you is that actually, on average, the Chinese collectors they are more like day traders. On average, their holding period are much shorter in comparison to collectors of Impressionists and also contemporary art in the Western art market. If I remember vaguely, I don't remember the exact number, but I think the holding period for Chinese art, I think if I don't sort of I can give you a ballpark number. I think that number is probably about half of the holding period of Impressionist or contemporary art. So it's shorter. So it's much more speculative. I think that's something that actually, that statement I can make. But I don't I don't remember specifically the exact number of years on average they held their paintings.
So you implicitly replied to a question that was raised in the meantime by Stephen. As a matter of fact, he was asking, is there any indication that the mean holding period for Chinese art or Asian artists differs compared to Western artists? So basically, you have responded also to Stephen's question. And there is another question by Jen Snowball, which is, would you expect, so is the other side of the issue, would you expect more information available for consumers, like the art price index you mentioned, to reduce loss aversion and anchoring bias? So basically, are you expecting an impact of your art price index on consumers' behavior?
Well, Elizabeth, I think I think we don't expect that actually a lot of people reading our papers, but I think if the results of the paper gets a bit more widely distributed, I think over time I think this may happen, but I think it may take longer time than the literature in finance, because in finance actually what's interesting is that actually a lot of the so-called behavioral biases that actually researchers identify actually gradually gets understood by the market. So people start to actually design trading strategies to actually take advantages of the so-called bargains and trying to avoid those so-called things stocks that are too expensive. But I think as you know probably better than I do, that the art market is not liquid, and also because of high transaction costs. So people probably it does not give people a lot of room or a lot of choices for them to actually taking advantage of the so-called bargains.
Yeah, indeed. Very interesting. I don't know if there are other. Today, our audience is a little bit shy. If you have other comments or questions or curiosity, please speak now or never.
Wow. I'll if if the audience has questions they want to ask, feel free to drop me a note. I think my email is feel free to drop me a note. Be happy to respond to you.
This is very kind of yours. Thank you very much, Jianping. This seminar is being recorded and will be put to the disposal of the Cultural Economics Association for Cultural Economics International Community. So I would like to thank you so much for taking the time of being with us today. So once again, I would like to remind that Professor Mei, together with Catherine Grady, Lara Lowenstein, Mike Moses, and Rachel Ponala, were awarded the Pommerehne Prize by the Journal of Cultural Economics. And before wishing you my best greetings of Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, I would like to make a special announcement, because if we allow me, we will stay in China. We will stay in the art market in the next CEOS, so please mark your agendas. So as usual, the second Tuesday of the month. So the 9th of January, we will start a new series of CEOS, which is we will reach out to other regions of the world in order to discover more what is going on in terms of cultural economics research, and using not necessarily only the English language, because there might be scholars preferring to work in more local languages besides English, and we will go to China, or we will stay in China, and because we will have the presentation by Professor Jun Huang on once again anchoring effects in the Chinese art market, and this will be an opportunity for the Association of Cultural Economics to go to China and to meet with cultural economists and other scholars, practitioners, and policymakers interested in cultural economics, and find out more, and also practice more our Mandarin for the sake of cultural diversity. So thank you so much. Thank you very much, Professor Jianping Mei, and Happy New Year. And it will be the dragon, the year of the dragon. And so see you next month. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, let me just mention, actually, I have left Stern. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.